It's time to suit up.
It's time to suit up. In 1934, Hitler came into power and obsessed over Aryan race, which is blonde hair, blue-eyed people, which is ironic because Hitler was a brown hair, brown-eyed guy, right? In violation of the Treaty of Versailles, Hitler started to rearm the German military and made alliances with Italy and Japan. In 1938, Hitler sent troops to Austria to occupy their land, which triggered confrontation between the countries. Hitler and Stalin then signed the Non-Aggression Pact, which would prevent a war on two fronts. Then on September 1st, 1939, German forces invaded Poland and caused Britain and France to declare war on Germany. After these actions, two sides formed, the Axis powers and the Allies. The Allies consisted of Britain, France, who are a bunch of cowards, the USSR, and the US. At the initial start of the war, the U.S. was only helping the Allied cause through the Lend-Lease Act. This act allowed America to send resources to Britain. America fully dived in the war after the attacks on Pearl Harbor. The Axis powers consisted of Germany, Italy, and Japan as the main countries. After Germany invaded Poland, the USSR moved to take over the Baltic states. The British and the German military started to battle in the sea, and over 100 British merchant ships were sunk because of the German U-boats in the first 4 months of war. Then on April 9th, 1940, Germany invaded Norway and Denmark, and a month later invaded Belgium, so no more waffles for them, and the Netherlands. Then on May 13th, 1940, German troops attacked French troops in Sudan. Then a month later, after that, German forces entered Paris, and Paris was split in two. One side under German control, and the other side under Marshal Philippe Petain's control. After taking control of Britain, German forces wanted to invade Britain amphibiously. So to do this, German planes bombed throughout Britain, killing many civilians. But Britain eventually defeated the Luftwaffe in the Battle of Britain, making Hitler postpone the invasion. Britain's defenses were in critical condition but gained aid from the U.S. due to the Lend-Lease Act. Then on December 7th, 1941, the Japanese attacked the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor, killing over 2,400 troops. The Japanese destroyed 20 Navy vessels and over 300 airplanes. American leaders never thought the Japanese would attack in Hawaii, being about 4,000 miles from mainland Japan, so Pearl Harbor had a relatively weak defense, causing the destruction that happened. Luckily, though, the major aircraft carriers were not at the base when the attack happened. Because the Japanese failed to destroy the oil storages, submarine docks, and shipyards, the U.S. was able to recover from this attack fairly quickly. As FDR said on the day Pearl Harbor happened, a day which will live in infamy, no matter how long it takes for us to overcome the premeditated invasion. The American people, in their righteous might, will win through to absolute victory. What this quote is saying is no matter what, America will bounce back from the attack no matter how long it takes for them to. Because this swayed the opinion of the American public now wanting to join the war. On December 8th, the U.S. declared war on Japan, meaning Germany and other Axis powers then declared war on the U.S. While all this was going on, the Germans began mass transporting Jews from the ghettos in Poland to concentration camps, such as Auschwitz. While all this was going on, the Germans began mass transporting from the ghettos where the Jews were held in Poland to concentration camps. The first major killing of the Jews was in the camp of Belzec on March 17, 1942. An additional 5 killing camps were built in Poland, with the biggest being Auschwitz, where over 2 million Jews were killed. The killing of the Jews peaked in 1944, where in Auschwitz alone, over 12,000 Jews were killed in a day. Killing the Jews wasn't the only thing the Germans did. They experimented on the Jews and tortured them in these camps. The deaths finally came to an end up until 1945 due to the death marches. away from the advancing Allies. In the end, about 6 million Jews were killed and about 11 million people total.
Go.
And now it's time for this week's mystery document. Alright, quote is, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And who I think said this quote is Winston Churchill. God. Oh, God!
After the bombing of Pearl Harbor, America was ready to be fully involved in World War II.
The home front changed. Propaganda posters started to be posted around America in an effort to rally troops. While men enlisted, women began to take upon jobs that men would usually do. This meant women had to stop doing tasks around the house and start doing factory jobs so the home front wouldn't suffer.
At the beginning of the Second World War, Hitler and Stalin, leaders of the Nazi regime and Soviet Union, decided to unite.
The USSR joined the Axis power. Though the USSR and Nazi regime had different beliefs, they decided to come together to sign a non-aggressional pact, August 23, 1939. This meant that neither side would attack one another. However, this pact didn't last long, with Germany invading the USSR June 22, 1941, not even 2 years after signing this pact. The USSR decided to switch sides, joining the Allies, and forming the Big Three.
In June of 1941, America, the United Nations, and the USSR united, forming a Big Three. This group was the only group to contest the Axis power. There were many important battles during World War II, but some of the more important ones include the Battle of Stalingrad, the Battle of Coral Sea, the Battle of the Bulge, the Battle of Midway, and the Battle of Okinawa. The Battle of Coral Sea took place early May 1942. This was the first air and sea battle in history, ever.
The Japanese seeked to control Port Moresby. However, Allies had interpreted their plans and were ready to attack when they arrived. Under commandment of Admiral Frank J. Fisher, America was able to strategically push Japanese troops back. The battle had reduced Japanese forces available at the Battle of Midway.
The Battle of Midway. Japan wanted to use Midway as a means of attacking Pearl Harbor.
However, the Japanese troops didn't know that the U.S. had broke their communication code and had intercepted the plan to attack Midway. On June 4th, the Japanese military had attacked Midway, but what they didn't know was the U.S. naval force was ready to attack. I guess what you don't know can actually hurt you. The Japanese had to retreat due to the U.S. relentless attack. The Japanese lost about 10 times as many men as the U.S., with the Japanese losing 3,000 and the U.S. losing 300. This U.S. victory stopped the growth of Japanese naval force and put the U.S. in a position to defeat Japan in island-hopping invasions.
The Battle of Guadalcanal, aka Operation Watchtower, took place between August 7th of 1942 and February 9th. 1943.
After the defeat at Midway, the Japanese Navy was in shambles. The U.S. commander saw an opportunity to exploit Japan's momentary weakness and create a permanent chasm in the Japanese Pacific perimeter. Only one thing, information of Guadalcanal had been scarce, if any at all. Deploying Marines meant they would be going in not fully knowing what to expect and with very little supplies. Because of this, the Marines nicknamed this operation Shoestring, because the plan was basically hanging on a shoestring. If everyone is thinking alike, then someone is thinking wrong. This is a quote by General George Patton. Only through different ideas can we create a unique plan. The U.S. couldn't afford to lose their position to multiple people coming up with different ideas and building on each other. This is the mindset Navy officers and generals had to enable to make this happen. For months, the U.S. couldn't seem to overpower the Japanese, with the Japanese repelling most attacks, but finally, under commandment of Admiral William F. Bull Hazley, the Navy sent one more convoy filled with almost all of the 164th Infantry, and the U.S. ended up overwhelming Japanese troops. This was the first offensive success for the Allies.
Stalingrad was the largest confrontation of World War II. It took place between July 17th, 1942 and February 2nd, 1943. Germany and its allies fought the Soviet Union for control over Stalingrad, but the Soviets successfully defended this. However, America wasn't involved, so we didn't dive into that. The Battle of the Bulge happened December 1944 when Hitler planned a surprise blitzkrieg in an attempt to split the Allied forces in half. This became known as the most desperate attack during the war. The German army overtook the U.S. 106th Division. This defeat bought time for the Brigadier General Bruce C. Clark to pull troops back and defend only the crucial points. The Germans tried to take control of the crucial points, but were pushed back. The Allied line of defense resembled a bulge, hence the name, the Battle of the Bulge. The Battle of Okinawa took place on April 1st, 1945, Easter Sunday. This was the last major battle of World War II, and also the bloodiest. With island hopping and naval strikes, America was in position to make a final push for Japan. The invasion was part of a plan to invade and control the Ryukyu Islands in an effort to end the war and push Japan out of reach even further back. When U.S. troops landed, the Japanese waited to attack immediately in order to lure the troops in. The Yamato was supposed to destroy the U.S. naval ships, then decimate the troops trapped on the island. However, U.S. submarines spotted the battleship, alerting the U.S. naval ships in advance, allowing for the ships to send an air attack and sink the Yamato. Though their plan was broken, the Japanese still fought relentlessly until U.S. troops took Shuri Castle on Okinawa. The loss of troops on both sides was great, but America had to keep pushing to control the island. This led to Hacksaw Ridge. The ridge was a 400-foot vertical cliff and a place for a horrid battlefield, filled with constant bombardment from both sides and interloping tunnels in which the Japanese were hiding. Capturing this ridge would mean a vantage point and a good outpost to controlling the rest of the island. Desmond Doss, a medic, would save 75 wounded men. After a brutal fight, mostly hand-to-hand due to how close it was, the Japanese were overwhelmed. This led to the capture of the rest of the island. Control over Okinawa meant we were now in range to attack Japan. Prior to the Battle of Okinawa, the United States began working on the Manhattan Project in 1942. This project was to make a weapon of mass destruction, a bomb that could wipe out life on a large scale. They accomplished this through many testings, and due to the findings of Albert Einstein, were able to create the world's first atomic bomb. At this time, the Axis powers were already significantly pushed back. America began to free imprisoned POWs throughout Japan and its surrounding islands. After getting the POWs free, it was time to let loose. With the capture of Okinawa, we were close enough in range to drop a bomb. After not taking the warning to surrender, President Harry Truman gave the order to drop Fampit's warning of impending attack. On August 6, 1945, the first atomic bomb was dropped in Hiroshima. Again, America asked Japan to surrender, and Japan refused to. 3 days later, America dropped the second and final bomb on Nagasaki. The Japan couldn't take another attack like this and surrendered.
The Potsdam Agreement. This agreement was between the United States, the United Nations, and the Soviet Union concerning Germany's territory and military.
Germany had to agree to give some territory conquered back and increase their military.
Paris Peace Conference. After the war had ended, it was time to negotiate peace.
The Paris Peace Conference lasted July to October of 1946. Representatives from both the Allied and Axis power met to discuss terms, including territory, reparations, and political representation. The Paris Peace Treaty was then signed February 1947.